Good morning everybody, welcome to Daisy Poppet's Homesteading. I'm Kaz, and in today's video I'm going to try a new bread recipe. I want to make a fruit and nut bread, but I'm going to use dried cranberries and chopped walnuts in my recipe. So first time making this bread, so let's get started. To make the cranberry and walnut bread, I have put in a medium bowl 375 ml of warm water, and into that I have put in 2.5 teaspoons of dry instant yeast and 2 tablespoons of maple syrup, and you just whisk that together until it's nice and combined. Now I am going to place the yeast mixture on top of my oven and let that sit there for about 10 minutes. The yeast mixture will then turn into a spongy consistency. So let's get to it. So I've moved the yeast mixture over on top of my oven, and I'm about to cover it with a clean tea towel. And like I said, I'm going to leave it for about 10 minutes. I've set my timer already, and when I come back the mixture should look nice and spongy. Alrighty. The sponge mixture has been sitting on top of the oven for about 10 minutes now, and as you can see, the surface of the yeast mixture has got a spongy appearance. I'm just going to pop this aside for now and bring over my bowl with my flour in it. So what I'm using today is a bread flour, and the bread flour is a higher protein than your cake flours, and the reason why I need to use the bread flour is I need a flour that will be able to provide the dough a better structure, and it will actually produce a chewier crumb. So I've also into this bowl I've added 450 grams of the bread flour along with 2 teaspoons of sea salt, and I've mixed it quite well together. And now what you need to do is just make a well in the center of the bowl, and then pour your yeast mixture into the bowl, and then using your spoon or your hands, or if you'd rather, you can actually do the whole process in a stand mixture. I like using my hands. I find it very therapeutic. Exercising my arms a bit. So once you can see it coming together nicely, I might actually swap over to my hands. Just keep working the dough, mixing all the flour into the dough. Use a scraper to help as well. Just keep pressing the dough into the flour. So I'm just going to bench turn it over onto the bench. And I'm just going to start kneading the dough together. A bit more, it's a bit sticky. Just use a scraper. Get this dough off my fingers. Sticky, so I've just added some more flour. So to knead the dough, what you need to do is with your left hand hold on to the dough and then stretch out with your right, then bring it back, give it a quarter of a turn, stretch out with your right and then bring back and give it another quarter of a turn, and so on. This process, if you're doing it by hand, will take about 10 minutes. So I'll pause the video for now and I will come back in 10 minutes to show you what the dough will look like once it's kneaded. Okay, I've kneaded the dough for about 10 minutes. I can tell that it's ready because if you press into it, it springs back quite quickly. Now to incorporate the fruit and nut mixture into my dough, I want to just press the dough out into a rectangular shape. Rough rectangular shape as best I can. So in here I have about half a cup of roughly chopped walnuts and a 3/4 of a cup of dried cranberries, a zest of an orange and a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So what I want to do is I want to put in half of the fruit and nut mixture, press it into the dough, best I can, fold from the top, fold over about 1/3 of the way down, and then with the bottom you want to fold that over the top of the dough like so, and then give it a 1/4 of a turn, and now press out again so you've got a bit of a wider surface area to play with. And then with the remainder of the fruit and nut mixture, you want to put that over the surface of the dough like so, pressing in. Now, so like as before, with holding the far corners, bring the dough over about a third of the way, press down, and then with the bottom two corners you want to stretch over the dough, place on top like that, give it a quarter of a turn, and then you want to start kneading your dough. Until your fruit and nut mixture comes through. That way, you know, if you do it like this, you know that your dough has been able to rather the fruit and nut is going to mix evenly throughout the dough. So you won't have bits of dough that have got no fruit or nuts in it. Don't want anyone missing out on that goodness. Now it's okay to add a little bit of flour to your surface while you're mixing and kneading through. I'm not worried about the fruit and nuts poking through the dough surface. I think it will just give it a bit more of a rustic look. Mix it a little bit more. Excuse me. As I mentioned before, like when I had the car accident, went to work one morning, and then about 3 weeks later I woke up in hospital. Yeah, they put me in a induced coma for about 3 weeks, just so that they could fix the broken bones, and obviously I was in a lot of pain, so to manage that they put me in. I have worked the dough enough now that I think it's ready to go into its proofing stage. So what I do is, in a large bowl, I've put in about a tablespoon of olive oil, and I'm just going to put it top side down into the bowl, and then just work that over a couple of times so that the dough's covered nicely with the olive oil so it doesn't dry out. And then I'm going to cover the dough with a tea towel, and then I'm going to place the dough back on top of my oven for about 2 hours to proof. Doughs that have been enriched with fruit and nuts typically take a longer time to proof because of that extra sugar in the dough. Okay. See you in about 2 hours. Okay, I've turned my dough out onto a lightly floured bench, and I'm going to shape it into a batard shape or oval shaped. So I want to like press it out into roughly a rectangular shape, and then I want to grab the top 2 corners and bring them into the center, or about the center, and then you've got like a bicycle looking shape, and then you want to bring this top bit over and just hold in place for a little bit, and then rotate the dough around and repeat, grabbing hold of the top 2 corners, bringing it in, and then bringing that bicycle shaped part over, and then just hold in place. And then you want to bring this over, like put your thumbs above the seam, and then bring the dough back onto itself, and like you just want to kind of fold that in and just hold that in place for a little bit. I just want to make sure that the seam is closed up enough. It should be fine. There you have it. There's like my shape that I want, and then just move slightly aside for now. And bring over a baking tray that's got some baking paper on it. And now I want to take this back over to the oven, cover it over with the clean tea towel, and I'm going to let that prove up for another half hour, and before I score it and then put into the oven. See you in a bit. Okay, the bread has been proving on top of my oven for about half an hour. So now I'm going to score the bread dough. I'm not quite sure, as I said, this is an experiment, so I'm not quite sure how much or where I'm going to score it. Maybe I'll do 3 diagonal. Just do roughly, yeah, 3 diagonal cuts. Now, the reason why you score bread is to help control the oven spring and to help prevent the bread from cracking as it's baking. I'm now going to put this in the oven, which has been preheated to 200 degrees. I'm thinking that it's probably going to take about 30 to 40 minutes to bake. So I will see you in about half an hour. Okay, I've just taken my bread out of the oven. It did take about half an hour, so I got my timing right. As you saw, I didn't use any like a Vienna slipper or anything like that to keep the shape of my Vienna. I just freeformed it. I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. So tell if your bread's ready. If you tap it, you'll have like a hollow sound. So just to finish off the bread, I just want to take a bit of maple syrup and I just want to brush all over the cranberry and walnut bread. Just give the crust a bit of a shine, make it look pretty, lock in the flavours. And I'm going to let that cool before I slice into it. I probably could have made the cuts, like the scores in the bread, a little bit deeper. That's alright for a first attempt at this recipe. So I'm just going to transfer this onto a wire rack so it can completely cool before I slice into it, to show everybody what's inside. I've let the cranberry and walnut loaf cool down completely, and now I've sliced it and you can see what it looks like inside. The fruit, the cranberries and the walnuts are fairly evenly distributed throughout the bread. I think that this bread was a success. I'm back again, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and me experimenting. If you like this recipe and would like to see more, please subscribe to my channel, Daisy Poppet's Homesteading, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.